morning, members. We all have gathered here for a breakfast meeting on the topic benefits of registration under MSME and emerging trends in MSME funding. To dwell upon this subject, we have CA Venkatesh Bhat sir. Can I request CA Shivkumar sir to escort the speaker onto dais and then welcome him with floral bouquet. Thank you, sir. I have a privilege in introducing the speaker, CA Venkatesh Bhat sir. Venkatesh completed his chartered accountancy in the year 1992. He is a gold medalist in CA Intermediate and South India topper in CA Fani. He has attended executive education courses in Wharton University and London Business School. He has worked in HUL, Whirlpool and GE and has held the CFO position in Act Fibernet and later in Blackbuck and held board positions in group companies. Both the companies where he served as CFO achieved unicorn status. He was recognized as one of the top 100 most influential CFOs in India in 2016 by CIMA. He was an executive council member in the ISP Association of India and regular participant in DOT and TRI meetings. He was part of the task force set up by Ministry of Information and Broadcasting to oversee Phase 3 and 4 digitalization in the country. He is a regular speaker in ICI events and conferences and has contributed articles to ICI publications. He is a key faculty for the certification course on MSME sector conducted by the ICAI and is part of the review panel set up by the Committee for MSME and Startups for the queries raised by startups. He advises and mentors startups incubated at Sastra University Startup Incubation Facility. He mentors young chartered accountants and SISA has published a white paper on journey from CA to CFO authored by him. Venkatesh Bhat sir is passionate towards climate change and has floated a climate tech social enterprise. Apart from MSME related topic, let's hear from him about climate change also today. With this brief introduction, I present before you CA Venkatesh Bhat sir. Over to you.
Good morning to all. When I was preparing for the presentation today, I was not very sure what kind of audience will be there. So I have prepared this is primarily for those who have some bit of an exposure to debt and MSME side, but not necessarily the experts. So some of you will have to really excuse me for actually talking about some basic information about MSMEs and kind of benefits. But at least the attempt has been to make it as comprehensive as possible. So you may not find a lot of depth, but width definitely you will find in the in today's session. So we'll quickly run through what is meant by MSME, how the ecosystem looks at MSME, what is the registration process, and the focus basically is on the benefits. What happens to many of us is that as chartered accountants, we are reasonably well versed on the financial side of the benefits that are available to MSME, from the banks or other financial institutions, what is available. And there are some, at least in the recent years, there are newer source of finance available to MSMEs. I am covering in the second part some of those opportunities that are there. But there are only few CAs who fully understand the other benefits that are available, which I think as a partners to the MSMEs, as a CA community, we have a responsibility to guide them, and it's not an easy situation for any MSME today to navigate the government institutions and really get what they need. Some of them are good at it, many of them are not that good, and so they give up also quite easily. So I think as chartered accountants who are partnering MSME in their journey, not only financial support that is available, but even the other benefits I think we need to help them to identify and secure those benefits. Because at the government level, the intent is very clear that we as a country have no choice but to fully focus on MSMEs and help them to grow, because large part of the economy is powered by MSMEs. So if that sector doesn't really do well, a lot of our growth numbers that we are talking about, first of all, will not be realized. Even if it is realized, it's only going to lead to more and more inequality in the country. So from that perspective, I think we have a responsibility, social responsibility as CS to actually educate on even the non-financial benefits that are available to the MSMEs. I'll very briefly cover the startups, although startup is a topic by itself, so I have not really fully gone into that. Startup registration is separate from MSME registration. This is a separate certification that you need to obtain, and there are benefits associated with that. Every startup is an MSME, so from that perspective, startup also has all the access to the benefits that are available to MSME. Then we will briefly cover some of the trends in the MSME funding, and this discussion need not be one way. I think there are, at least I have already met a couple of people who have a reasonable amount of depth in these topics, so we can make it anything that you want to add to what is there on the slide, so please make it. I think these breakfast meetings are primarily meant to really develop the interaction amongst members, so we can also learn from each other, not necessarily only from the speaker. There is a Go Green initiative part I will briefly cover, and then there is a slide on the IT resources. Probably I will share the presentation later because a lot of this information have been compiled from various sources, and I have also mentioned in many cases the sources also. So possibly it will help you to actually do your own research later and increase your knowledge. So in 2020, the country changed its definition of MSMEs. Earlier the focus was the size of the industry was determined primarily on investment alone. And it was also, I would say, a bit archaic way of looking at it. So in 2020, we changed the definition. We now moved into both investment as well as annual turnover. Whichever way you meet, then you will be able to get the benefit of it. So right now you have an investment of 1 crore and 10 crore and 50 crores for micro, small and medium. 5 times of this investment is a turnover limit. So 5 crore, 50 crore and 250 crores is the annual turnover limits for the MSME. Again, a key thing here is that ones that were registered earlier, before this classification came, lot of this industries would have taken under the earlier Udyam Aadhaar scheme. So that those will have to also now move under Udyam portal based on this new definition, and this transition has not fully happened. So even as we speak also, a lot of the industries are still in UAM this one only. They are not even moved to the new registration, and that's something that we should find out and figure out, because the earlier registrations are closed now. And all the new schemes, when you go through the schemes, you will realize that they are all linked to the new registration. If you don't have the registration, then you don't get these benefits. You don't even get information. Forget about even getting the actual benefit of it. You will not even get the information. So it is important for MSME to be aware of that. So if there are chartered accountants here, I am sure when we take a count of it, I have done it in the past. Many of their clients, though they are in Bangalore, though they are in the center of IT revolution in the world, actually in the city, they are not registered in the MSME as MSME. Number one, what is there? I don't think there is any benefit, that kind of an attitude, and they are not even really explored it fully. So I think that we should actually help them to understand. These are largely numbers known to us. When we say MSME sector, so large percentage of this is actually only micro. That's the sad part of it actually. 97% is micro. Small is also not really much actually, and medium is even much smaller. It's a bit of a surprise. Probably it is because there are too many of these micro percentages, micro enterprises are there, so the higher ones are small and medium numbers are much lesser. But I also want to tell you one very, very critical information. See, I am sure many of you have seen this number. We have 6.3 crores of MSMEs. If I ask how many of you don't know, I don't think any hands will come up. But the reality is that this is a 2016 number. Okay, so post 2016, the national sample survey has not happened, and these numbers have not been updated. So all of us are actually running on a 7-year-old number, and based on that, we are all even the policy decisions today are actually based on this. That's the reality today. Though there are publications coming from the government side with a lot of updated schemes and information, this primary information itself is quite old actually. Now, let's go with what we have, 6.3 crore units, and they are saying, it's a year-on-year 18.5% from 2019 to 20. If you ask me what is the basis on which anyone has given this 20%, nobody has a basis. These are all, one website quoting another website, that linkage. So
somewhere it is around 1 million, maybe.
Probably.
Probably it is being
my guess is at least it is from 2016 numbers. First of all, 2016 it is a sample survey, and based on that it has been arrived at. At least 30% would have net would have gone, because while new enterprises are coming in, there is also depth in micro sector is very high. That's also reality of. So at least it is 8.3. You may be even right. It could be even around 10. Can. This number, employment number, is also very old. 11 million is also coming from 16 now.
These units are all not registered with the 6.3 is an estimate.
It is an estimate. It is not
It
registered.
is not based on the registration with the government of India.
No.
UAM registration, when it closed, was 1.02.
1.02.
1.02 crores. Today on Udyam registration we have over 2 crores as reported by financial experts.
So that means there are so many unregistered units.
There are a lot of unregistered units. The good part is that Udyam registration is going up year on year. 2 years back it was 19 or so. In 2020 it was reported. From 19 it went to 34. Now they are talking about 2 crore number. So, and I don't have a ready, this number is not published, at least, publicly available information is not there. The last number was 64 lakhs as of March 22.
As members of the institute, I think our responsibility to kind of encourage more and more people to
Yes,
register. And
that's the key. So that's the
banking is probably putting lot of efforts in that indirectly to get rate benefits to MSME. So probably we push client to go for a Udyam registration, then we will give you that much of rate benefit. So probably that one of the factor which probably it is contributing to increase the numbers.
Absolutely. And I think we should also appreciate the efforts of the government in terms of coming with a lot of schemes. One of the major institution which is actually helping on the MSME side is NSIC. And NSIC in 21, 4,500 crores disbursement happened financially. And last financial year their rough estimate is 6,000 crores. These are not very small numbers, so it's not just that it's a scheme on the paper. I think that's
what is the full form of NSAC?
National Small Industries Corporation.
It's an alternative to SIDBI kind of.
Yes. But it is not only, I have covered it actually, so it's not only finance actually, they are also into technology, into capability building, IPR, all of that they are covering.
More incubation kind of facility. Incubation
also
finance.
they have. Yes. So this is, most of you know, covered it for the purpose of completeness, registration process, email ID, company address, all these are needed. I will share this so that those who don't know this, at least you have it in one place. It's a very simple registration process, to be honest. In fact, they made it so simple. In fact, they made it very clear also, both for this and startup, that we don't need any intermediary to even to do this. So you can have
online, it can be easy. It is very easy for appointment.
Very easy process. Very easy process. So this is the kind of Udyam certificate that you will get out of So these are largely the benefits of MSME registration. Lower interest business loans you will be able to avail the minute that you have an MSME tag.
At what stage should we register here? The day, so my people say that they incorporate the company, they want registration to do
Correct.
that.
Yes.
No, but at that time, no, there is no plant machinery, no employee, still.
Nothing. In fact, the process says that, see, even this, all this turnover and all that, no, you don't need to even worry actually at that stage. You can make your estimation and then based on that you can register. Once your MSME registration happens, at that time your turnover is zero. Your investment is also could be zero. You can estimate for the first year and say whether I am going to be micro, small or whatever. As your financials come, your classification will change. You can be straight away. I would suggest that it is important to be part of that government database as early as possible. It's a huge database. At the end of it, one crore registration is there already. But I think the database also is amenable for this one. So today, anyone who is looking for a specific company, specific information, they will be able to navigate through that database. It is that much flexibility is there. So you can get discovered through the database. But to me, the minute once you become eligible, there are automatic linkages. The minute you are in MSME registration happens for their B2B procurement process, this one you are automatically picked up. Even the earlier, if you are going for Mudra or any other scheme, the first thing that will be asked will be your MSME registration. So it is important to complete it as early as possible. And even the ones who have not done and they have already progressed, there is never a bad day for this one. Any day you can actually go and register, complete the registration. So there are some direct tax flow benefits also. So the credit for MAT can be carried forward. Get compensated for the expenditure on ISO certification. Get beneficial government tenders. Some of it separately covered, but largely these are the benefits. Some barcode registration subsidy, electricity bill concession, special consideration in international trade fairs. These are all available to MSMEs. And get benefits of government schemes and policies. We'll cover that largely subsequently. And there's also one-time settlement even in the RBI rules. If you are an MSME, one-time settlement for non-paid amounts of SME. So if you are even in that extreme situation of an MSME going out, then also the fact that it is registered will actually help. So I talked about NSIC. Basically, what is the objective of NSIC? It integrated support services encompassing marketing, finance, technology and other services. So it's not simply only finance. Finance part is separately anyway covered, so I am covering the other parts at this stage. So they are focused on raw material distribution. What do? They tie up with, let us say, you require aluminium, you require iron, you require. The large players, these guys tie up, and on behalf of all these MSMEs, they agree a lower rate, and it is their key objective. So they would definitely negotiate at a lower rate compared to market and all. So as an MSME, when you are part of the scheme, you are able to tap into the NSC scheme and to specific raw material. As long as it is negotiated by the NSC, you will be able to get at that rate. It's a significant benefit. But the problem again, if you look at the today's MSME registration data or UM data, can you guess which state is the highest percentage of registration? Highest numbers?
Gujarat.
Maharashtra. Maharashtra has the highest, and Karnataka actually is much lower. Maybe you can always argue that maybe the industrial units are lesser here in Karnataka. But even if you take into consideration that, even then the percentage of registration is much
Not
lower.
only industry, the service, even chartered accountants also can register like that.
Can.
So, no, but the boosting of the number, at least chartered accountants register also is considered as a personal.
It will be.
Service.
Out of the two.
Yeah, so, but lot of the benefits are linked to
Industry.
if you are manufacturing or if you are paying.
Not a service.
So on a service basis, you don't get really much of a.
Actually, there are two kind of things. One is regulatory and one is non-regulatory. So regulatory you will get more of benefits as compared to the non-regulatory.
But when you are trying to register, there are 3 to 4 portals that are similar on this they are similar.
Mm.
Very difficult to identify which is the government portal.
Okay. Let me introduce to you Uma. She's part of our firm. She heads treasury and all the debt related ones. So you can contact her. We keep doing MSME registrations and other registrations, or we can give you the actual proper link anytime.
But I think Karnataka is coming top 10. It's coming in top 10.
In UM registration.
No, about the MSME, overall MSME segmentation.
So see the
Maharashtra is on top. And
yeah.
Karnataka is
No,
also
I know Maharashtra is on top. So point is in terms of registration, who is on top?
registration. Yes.
So the thing is that you can always understand. See, suppose there are schemes like this, and you are not even registered. You can keep sitting at home and crying, saying that I don't get any benefit. And there are others in other states who are registered who take advantage. It may be a small amount, it may be big amount. But the point is that those schemes are available, and if you don't ask, you don't get. That's also the reality. Now you look at NSIC. Suppose a large segment of one Karnataka, none of these guys are registered. They will not even pick that as a raw material for negotiation. So if you say all of us require a particular type of raw material, the volumes are significant, then they will start understanding who are the suppliers and how to negotiate. So you get the benefit of the size through NSIC. And those are the, I would say, we also go and talk to association. These are job of associations. You have to figure out how to really get all these industries together and represent, and then get these arrangements done for the benefit of the industry. Consortium tender marketing also they help. Then there is a credit support. I talked about these numbers. They have also a single point registration scheme. Once you become part of the NSIC through the MSME, then many portals of government, you automatically get registration. And there's a good amount of work done by these guys on the technical centers. So there are 3 different kind of services they provide today. MSME Technology Center is one part, and then there is an MSME Development Institute, and then the testing centers. So in Technology Center, they do primarily design and manufacture of tools, precision components and all. Skilled manpower also they supply. So a lot of these MSMEs keep crying that they don't get right people. But there are training institutes where a lot of the, it's not a very small number. When I'm looking at the website, the number of trainings who come out of this is it is not in lakhs, but it definitely is not in hundreds also. It is in thousands every year. So there is a good amount of opportunity there for MSMEs to tackle. Then product specific support to MSMEs in respect to by rendering technical services. These also have technology experts, and they are available for the MSMEs. Again, given the Indian context, I would say an industry should approach them through an association and then go and tackle. So probably your ability to actually to secure what you require will be high, but the platform exists. Then development institutions are basically technical support, market research, assistance in securing finance. They help in terms of MSMEs to prepare a financial projection and a project report. Obviously, this is meant for maybe much larger opportunities, say 100 crore, 200 crores, those kind of things. Then those guys come and help out. Then the cluster development activity. They also look at now this whole concept clusters coming in MSMEs. Each state they are actually breaking into different clusters, and in the cluster, how to actually to develop a specific product focus and service focus is what's happening. Then these testing centers are enable accreditation and BIS recognition. So this is lot of this testing center work is relevant if an MSME is supplying to government. Then government supply will happen only if you have this certification, otherwise you will not get. But those certifications are also relevant even if you are supplying to private. Suppose you have no certification, it is better to at least have these certification. So this is how an MSME looks at the business on a slightly long term with the vision and saying, I have these respective certifications. This is how I am also able to go and present myself better in an international market. If you don't have any of that, and you go and compete with somebody, and other party has the right kind of certification, right kind of this kind of testing supports rendered, your tender gets rejected at the first level itself without even getting into commercials. So there is a huge amount of support that is rendered here. Testing centers are so they are quite 1970s they were established and they are quite large organizations. 18 technology centers they are already adding another 30 plus in different states. They are going to become maybe in the next 4-5 years they will all become which basically means 18 did well. Otherwise why will they go and add more centers? Similarly 32 development institutes and 27 branches. So almost 60 such development centers are through the country. And ready to bet that many chartered accountants don't even know that such a system even exists.
And if you go normal in daily newspaper, you will see such kind of ad which is coming through the MSME centers like that. What a kind of educations, what kind of financial technical supports they are, kind of certification also they are doing it. So that you can commonly see in the
Correct.
daily newspapers.
There are several schemes for this also for MSMEs. First block has credit and financial schemes. We cover them in the subsequent slides. Then schemes for technical assistance like technology assistance, I covered them briefly. Market assistance, MSA CDPs. Some of these I am only mentioning here because then you will have to go into the details of it when it is relevant to the respective MSME. Skill development, there is a lot of work happening. There are specific schemes around this. All these schemes get funded every year by the central government in terms of budgets. Other schemes are also there where it's basically marketing assistance and revamp scheme for regeneration of traditional industries and international cooperation schemes. Prime Minister's Employment Generation Program. This is basically to provide financial assistance to set up self-employment ventures and generate sustainable employment opportunities. So largely, I would say smaller kind of smaller size MSMEs, micros. The thing is that this is margin money subsidy ranges from 15% to 35% of the project cost. And then if you are in manufacturing sector and 20 lakh in service sector, so even services are covered here. For beneficiaries belonging to special categories, you have the region specific for the northeast, backward regions, states, then community-wise SC, ST, women, disabled, all these come under special category. Point is that out of the, let us say, the team that is running MSME, if there are people who qualify for this, it is our job to actually to educate the client that see, because this is a women-driven enterprise. In these schemes you have an advantage. You can actually mention this and really obtain a additional benefit. So there is a bank sanction 90 to 95% and straight away is actually the money gets disbursed. There is no problem on that. Balance amount is basically own contribution. Either it's 10% for general category and 5% for special category. So there are and this entire scheme runs on online. And if you go through the details of it, it is every stage of the application you get actually SMS to your mobile. So it's not a very let us say black hole situation. You apply and nothing happens. It works in a reasonably online and digital fashion.
So, can I see apply this when they start open their own services also available?
I think you may not apply, but I would suggest you have to go through that. Because specific service, this one is eligible, but I don't think as a chartered accountant. The first question is why do you need money? See,
Set up the form as
set up form for what?
consulting and all.
See, when an MSME starts, in order to even to earn their first revenue, they need to have machinery. They need to have they need to have the right technology. So that is where their initial requirements come. I don't think these guys
Service industry also can represent MSME.
you can. There is a service industry, but service industry, I don't think rendering CA. To be honest, I have not explored whether a CA can apply here. I would say that you need to then check it out. I am looking at more
Service
from a
industry
CS
also-
advising their clients.
Service industry also covering that MSME Act as per MSME.
Yes, yes.
But the CA issued a CA form, I don't think so. It is being qualified for.
It won't qualify. According to me, it shouldn't.
Yeah.
See, CA form can register under ISO, right? ISO.
Yeah, you can.
But when you want to register under it, then automatically it's asking, are you under MSME?
No, no, you are an MSME. Nobody is questioning whether you are an MSME. In fact, you can even assume that you have some amount of technology, some amount of automation, etc. being planned. Even you can, with a bit of stretch of imagination, you can even think of getting this under startup. But those benefits are not going to be available just because you set up an office. I doubt very much whether that will.
So banks are lending at higher cost, right? So
Hmm?
banks are lending at higher cost.
See, first of all, there is a scheme called Mudra. So we cover it separately. That Mudra is the one where when you initially start off, if you this one that scheme that Mudra scheme is available. But when we actually tried that Mudra, we thought it is going to be at a lower cost of interest, but the interest cost was very very close to what is available. What is this one for a regular corporate? So then our understanding then from Mudra is that it is not about the lower cost of funding, but it is just about availability. So more than the PMEGP, I think the Mudra scheme will be more relevant for the.
It is only financial support which you can get. That's
No.
it. Otherwise, the rate benefits is not much there.
Correct.
Compared with the.
Yes. So this MSME Champions is it's like a mother scheme. There are 2-3 elements into this. This is basically credit linked capital subsidy comes under this and technology upgradation. Many MSMEs today, our clients, when we talk to them, we realize that their technology is slightly, they are not really up to the mark in terms of when talking about even a medium-sized enterprise or a large enterprise. Where is the problem? The problem is that they don't have money to further invest, and they have already right hand, left hand, everything is invested. There is nothing left further to invest into that, and they are struggling with their working capital. So in those situations, if they for the technology upgradation will typically mean the phrase is okay. At the end of it, it is about buying new machinery, and probably suppose there is a software update, etc. involved upgrade that will come under that. Probably MSME Champion is also another one we can actually explore. So here one is technology upgradation. Second is it is more about creating a champion out of MSME. What does it mean? It means you should be reducing your defects. You should be like an ISO standards and other certification, and you should be able to access that. That's the scheme here. So under this there is one MSME sustainable certification, which is you can actually go and apply for this certifications. The certification will be issued, and the cost is very less actually, 10,000, 40,000 kind of cost. They complete the certification. Now, if you go to private, this will be the cost of this will be much higher than what these guys are actually charging, and even then there are subsidies on that actually. Even these low fees also, more and above that, if you are in eligible category, you will get further subsidy. So that way it is a very attractive one for MSME certification and building their capabilities in terms of competing in the market.
Sir, these benefits are same for micro, small, medium, or micro has extra 1%, this one, or medium has something like that? No?
See,
why the categorization then?
Yeah, so point is micro size is small. The
Right.
amount that then they will become eligible also will be small because their balance sheet will not support anything
Yes,
bigger.
what I am asking is that suppose you say that MSME is eligible for say 0.5% reduction in the interest rate. Now whether micro also same 0.5%, the medium also same 0.5% only, or micro will have 0.5%, small will have 0.4% reduction, medium has 0.3% reduction, something like that. Is there any
You have to
difference?
get into the details of each scheme. I don't want to give a very general answer. But wherever I have seen, I have not seen it again within MSME segregation.
No, then what is the use of this categorization of 1 crore, 10 crores and 50 crores?
There are some specific benefits to
Micros only.
Correct. But not necessarily everywhere it is in financial terms. So that's the other part.
Actually, what I think that it is has been segregated because to see the number of volume and they can see how the growth is coming in micro. Because if you see the data which you have just presented, over 97% overall population which we have in micro out of the total MSME. So if you see the last two years back, it was around 2-3 years back, it was around 99%. Only 1% were there for small and medium. So gradually that medium and small is growing up and more contributing towards the overall population. So segregating probably the idea about to know how the industry is going in what terms. So
Yeah, see, definitely. See, classification is a key reason for this one. Having that kind of a segregation. But in some of these, some of the schemes when I see for a very small unit, let us say subsidy given is slightly higher. But they are not so significant. It's, for example, some 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees lower for micro. So those kind of benefits are there. But it's not a very huge difference between micro and small and medium. And what will also happen is that if you go to the banks, they will have a micro sector focus. So in that case, suppose a particular bank has a certain amount of budgets towards micro and small, then you will be able to apply only if you are either micro or small. If you are medium, you cannot apply. So that way, there are at a policy level they have created some amount of benefits for the smaller units.
I think most of the thing for available for micro and small easily than medium. Medium is more or less getting into the normal mode. So benefits are relatively less. That's why the classification.
Correct. So also the reality is also that medium ones are also of a reasonable size. So they have access to the regular bank and regular finance
Now this
resources.
250 crores turnover means literally everybody is in MSME only.
We are talking about 250 crores.
So I'll give you one basic difference what micro and other enterprises currently in the banking terminology is that the financial assistance few banks, because I had earlier with the private bank, so where there are up to 2 crores limit that we used to fund in that micro segment was basically a GST based program. So where we don't require any financials from the client. It is basically through that GST site we get the data.
We have covered it separately.
Yeah, we get the data and fund it 2 crores and it is like of 2 hours sanction. You don't require any banking, nothing. It is everything connected to your Aadhaar Udyam and we get all the data and in 30 minutes you get the sanction.
During the COVID, if you go back to the COVID time, some of those subsidies and benefits that were specifically mentioned were different based on the classification. One advantage of the MSME registration is that any such direct benefit transfer is directed to the account. So there is no question of leakage or no question of delay. So it is a direct transfer, like what is happening on the savings bank account, transfers are from the either state government or central government. Like this, you need to have a MSME registration in order to, get that direct benefit of the transfer. So this is the certification under the sustainable part, and I have covered all the details. I will not cover them because anyway we will get the details of it separately. Will be circulated. Manjunath, this will be
Shared with us.
yes. So the financial assistance is up to 75% of the cost will be covered there. And there are graded incentives also. So all these are applicable. All MSMEs, including medium, can avail this. However, your Udyam registration is a must. So the other one under the technology, that MSME champion scheme is the called innovative, basically incubation, IPR and design. So here this is basically to see innovation. In a large organization, what happens is that they will have resources for innovation, they will have resources for research, technology, all of that. For us, in a smaller setup, there is only one founder or even there are, let's say, a couple of people, 2 or 3 people are there, not necessarily they are good at everything. Right? So they may be good at their product manufacturing, or they will be good at marketing or understanding the market. But innovation, technology, etc. is a big challenge. That's why this entire MSME champion scheme is helping the MSMEs to get them updated on the innovation part. So there is a concept, I'm not sure how many of you know about this. This is called a host institute. What is a host institute is any university or even not necessarily an academic institute, it can even be private institutes also. They can register themselves as host institutes with the ministry. Once you register, then what happens? You will be considered as an incubator. Incidentally, I am part of one of such incubator set up at Sastra University at Tanjore. So then what happens is that the nearby, wherever this is there, then you can actually set up a lab. There will be certain amount of support coming from the government, and so the startups that need to initially do the testing, experimentation, etc. All of that will be supported through the infrastructure of the incubator. So that's and today it's a quite large this one. It's the number of, if you actually type out incubators and figure out, there are a huge number of incubators through the country. That's a good part of it. How, to what extent these are able to support? Each incubator has their own set of challenges. However, this is definitely a far better scenario than when there were no incubators. A few years back there was nothing for MSME. So MSME will do some activity, and as long as once the product comes to its natural decline, which is a normal business cycle, and then the MSME literally has to go out of business unless they are able to figure out a new technology, and probably they may not be in that space at all. So today, there is a support available in terms of the incubation. So basically, here the idea is to support through some amount of funding. See, you can, if you are going for patenting, there is a support of it can go up to 5 lakhs here on the GA design. There are different kind of patent trademark registration also. There will be special rates for the MSMEs. So all that they need to do, they may be working on this at this point of time. They need to assign themselves along with an incubator, and through that route, if they apply, then they will be able to get the benefit of these schemes. So incubation, then design, and then IPR. All three are actually part of this particular scheme. So this is the typical websites, and this one available under the government portals. My MSME, MSME Data Bank, Udyam Registration. These largely are covered. MSME, my MSME is, you have to log into the MSME website. Then you become part of that website, and all the communication starts coming to you. Then MSME Sampark and MSME Sambandh, I'll cover them separately. Champions I covered. There is a separate portal for MSME champions. Then PMEGP also we covered. MSME Samadhan. How many of you have tried MSME Samadhan for your clients? One. Okay. So I won't call it a very perfect system, but I know several of MSMEs. Some of them are our clients, some of them are not, who have been able to go to MSME Samadhan. You need to have your purchase orders and documentation clearly available, and say that see, I have supplied to so and so industry. Then this is the purchase order. These are the terms. They have not paid, and there is a certain amount of communication going from the MSME industry to that to the defaulting vendor. He needs to defaulting customer. He needs to respond, and in many cases, instead of getting into all of that, a lot of the customer then decide to pay and close it. So many guys have been able to get this. The advantage of this is that there is no cost. You just it's a government portal. You apply and you put all the documents and you figure out. But if you don't have documents, then there is an issue.
Can you go retrospectively? Like, for example, somebody has not paid. Right now we don't register it in MSME. Can you go to
Yes.
retrospective?
Yes. Except I think the law of limitation will still apply.
The 3 years.
Yeah. The law of limitation will still apply. However, you need to know this. Law of limitation applies on the last date of your communication to him saying that is outstanding. From there, the 3 years will apply. So, if your communication has happened in before 2020, and after 3 years you have kept quiet, then you will not get the
So assuming that 2020 somebody has raised the invoice and today is going and registering in MSME, for that invoice also you can do
Definitely. You can. Some of these questions come to us in our even the ICA portal also. People ask these questions actually on how to go ahead and do. When a lot of questions are around MSME Samana, because that's the biggest challenge of the MSME is how to collect money from the market. Trades platform. How many of you know about Trades platform? Some 2-3 people here. I should even ask questions because you are the. So, Uma. Okay, Trades platform is a platform where you can actually bill discounting equivalent of it. You can go and put your invoices there, and bill discounting process will work, and you will be able to get your money faster. So the advantage is that you don't need to go and separately arrange, get into an arrangement with the bank. Today that entire process is quite time consuming, documentation, everything is involved here. And if you run bill discounting with a regular bank, you will realize that it is never a one-time activity. It's a day in and day out you have to be there, because every time an invoice goes through its cycle, it has to be closed, and then you need to communicate back. So there is a huge set of challenges involved. And probably larger organization can afford all that. They have people and resources to do this. But smaller organizations, at some point or they have to give up, or their reconciliations will become so complicated that they'll say, the banks will stop supporting because they have not completed the process. So from that perspective, Trades is a good platform. So irrespective of what is happening on your balance sheet, how your balance sheet is, Trades is because it's an underlying transaction is there, and on that basis you are getting the funding. It's a great platform. But again, in terms of its potential versus how much it is used, there is a huge gap today. Not too many people have gone in and actually accessed it. Again, both sides are a part of that. On the one side, Trades platform is to become a lot more flexible, lot more responsive. On the other hand, from as chartered accountants who are supporting our clients, we also need to learn how to navigate and advise clients to actually to go through the pain and to figure out how to manage this entire Trades platform process. Definitely, it's an advantage. GEM is a procurement portal of Government of India. So if you are a registered MSME, then if in case your product is something that any of the government departments or enterprises can purchase, then there is a certain amount of procurement budgets that are allocated. So government will procure only from MSMEs. There are two types of budgets there. One is in terms of product specific. Certain products they will only procure from MSMEs, and in other products they will have a certain amount of procurement percentage to be taken from the MSMEs. So that way, again, this is something to be explored fully for the different products, because many MSMEs have many products. Suppose you are a polymer industry, it's unlikely that you are only going to manufacture buckets. So you will have 25 different things that you are producing. So you need to then figure out which of these products appear in which of the government procurement list, and then see how to actually take advantage of it. I am not saying it is easy, but first all the effort starts with first knowledge, and then an intent to actually to figure out and go through a certain amount of challenges to because you have to fit into the scheme. Scheme is not going to fit this one. It's not made to order the kind of dress that it will perfectly fit you. We need to actually figure out how to actually become eligible to participate there. MSME data bank is basically once you get into the data bank, you can get registered for government procurement. So how do you do this? So basically there is this registration at msmedatabank.in. So once you do that, you get into the data bank, being considered for government procurement. So this is how the website
GEM portal also where you can
linkages. Yes. The champions, I covered technology assistance. This is the portal. Champion portal broadly covered this technology-driven control room, management information systems can come out of using this portal. So modern tools for increasing the output and national strength. This is more of a department-wise, department level objectives and mission. We covered this in terms of technology inputs to the MSMEs. This is B2B portal for MSME Mart. There is a global mart. So both you can, this is both for India as well as outside India. MSME Sambandh. What is MSME Sambandh? This is the target of 25% procurement from MSME sector. There are sublimits for others out of this vulnerable sections. There are 323 already registered in the platform and bill discounting facilities through the threads. So these are the links actually. You can use these links and figure out the specifics for your particular MSME. The Sambandh portal has been a reasonably successful one. You can see that the large number of large values are there that have gone through the Sambandh portal. This procurement as on date is some 155,000 crores. So that's a pretty large number. So why these numbers I have put is that sometimes at least some CAs have this mindset that many of the government schemes are only on paper. Actually, it's very difficult to get. Nothing happens. It's not so. It's not so. They are not easy, but at the same time, there are others who have successfully used this and actually built their business. Samadhan also we covered. Samadhan portal. This is how look at the number of applications that are there. Mutually settled some 220 applications to be reviewed by there's a council that will review. That's the number.
So is there time limit to close this case? If you go to Samadhan,
So I think they will have some internal. But I have seen that they come back. They come back. See the point. If the other party responds and closes quickly, that's the 13 to 20 that you are seeing there. It's done faster. Where the other party, suppose you send a response, this one, based on that somebody in the council reviews and then they send to the counterpart. If the counterpart does not come back, then the process can get prolonged. Then they will have to, it has not come back, then you go and say, I have not received a response, they will again send another reminder. That process, because it is samadhan, no? It is like an arbitration.
but assuming that somebody has gone to Samadhan scheme after 2.5 years, will he get 3 years further?
No, I have not come across that specific case, but I think once you start the process, it doesn't matter. My guess is it should not matter.
It should not matter.
Now this is the Startup India registration. The only reason I put this is that this is an additional registration, and this is where you start becoming visible to DPIIT and the benefits of that. I have not separately covered here because mostly in Bangalore nobody needs to be taught about startup registration benefits actually. So. But it's important to ensure that both registrations are taken, and MSME you can take any time. Startup India registration, there is a time bound process. You need to do it, otherwise after that you will not get a registration, and even the benefits also are not available. Many of the startup benefits are linked to first 2 years. After that you will not get. So there's a certification of the Startup India registration certification. Okay, so if you want to take a small break right now, we can do that, and then, or else if you want to ask questions, we can do. Then we go to the next session.
This startup registration is different from BPIT startup registration. What is it?
Same.
So one link is
Yes.
So this income tax benefit under startup, is for how many years? It is 3 years or 10 years?
Yeah.
Any 3 years you can.
Any 3 years. You choose.
And when you get funding locally or internationally, whether you have to apply online under section 56 to 70, where
Angel tax.
angel tax.
No, I think these are very specific questions. I would then request you to take our this one, and we can discuss over the phone and friend. Our mobile numbers are there. You can call us and because it all depends on the specifics. Unless I understand all the details, I will not be able to do any advice.
In case of export finance for MSME, is there any special benefits for export finance? like pay shipment or packet, post shipment?
Those are anyway existing benefits. Those are definitely there. This is in addition. This is not in lieu. So you can get the export benefits for eligible export transactions.
So now deregistration of MSME, once I cross that particular turnover or the investment, is it an automatic or we have to inform to the banker? For example, bank is keep on sanctioning the loan based on MSME, but once it crossed that particular limit turnover, investment in plant.
Banks have internally processes around that. So they, every year when they look at your numbers, you are submitting for your financials, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So your balance sheet is there, so investment is known and your turnover is known.
We need to.
You don't need to do anything. If the bank feels that you have already crossed the level, they will.
MSME registration is already there, no? Whether we have
That is okay.
So
That doesn't really.
But basis on financial, if you cross that threshold which has been as per the MSME Act, so bank automatically recognize you in small or medium.
Yes. And if you have crossed the medium, then you will not get that.
But then do you need to report back to that MSME registration site saying that
No,
you have
nothing
crossed?
required, nothing required.
Not.
Really, I
MSME
faced a similar situation.
Hmm?
My client again, Bank Baroda was involved here. The bank said you have crossed this, you go back and do the registration. And then client says, no, there is a mistake, they are not accepting it. There is some issue there. So
Yes.
sometimes back and forth is practically to be dealt with on case-to-case basis.
Yes.
because by the time the financial, no, it will be already over,
Hmm.
and bank would have given the concessional rate of the interest on the MSME. But whether they can go back and say that no, look, we will charge under MSME, since you have submitted financials now, we need to recover that differential.
I have not come across, so I can't really advise on
It
this.
doesn't happen like that.
It doesn't. I mean, see, always the way the banks work is that at the point of sanction.
At the point of sanction, if you are micro, you get that benefit. At the
Yes,
point of
you get
sanction,
that.
you get a
So
medium. you
till
get
the
that.
next renewal is not there, you get all the benefits.
In a case of working capital, you have a continuous system, but see, no facilities are eternal, no? It's never forever. So, all the facilities, if it is working capital 90 days, if it is term loan, then also you have to at least give, if nothing else, at least an annual numbers. At that time, the revisions happen and the decisions will be prospective from there. At least that's my experience.
Is there a quarterly, monthly reporting to the MSME authorities regarding our activity? Nothing.
No.
Once registered, that's it. No yearly annual filing, nothing.
No. See, there is a separate, which we have been doing for ages, you remember? The Department of Industries used to send data.
Waste center used to send
So we have to give all our information.
Paper checklist.
So checklist. So that is how that NSS I refer to National Sample Survey. Where do you think the information is? The information comes like this only. So that is supposed to actually collect information on the actual financials and your MSME registration and that is a. I don't think those departments also talk to each other.
No, I had a funny experience. One of my companies in Bangalore, that sample survey came. There's a delay in responding. One fellow promptly turns up and says, I'll attach your bank account if you don't give the information. I have that power. Unfortunately, he's got that power.
But they have the power.
Yeah, they have the power. If you don't submit the information also, they can take action against you. So then we had to tell him, boss, accountant is on leave, we'll send.
See, you look at it, when we, today there are so many decisions of ours, is based on data. So, even for our internal presentations or when, let's say, I go to, let's say, a specific government department for any representation, whatever our representations have to be based on data. So, we need to collect data. Now, data itself is not collected. We are all, going and representing, they are also listening on 2016 data. It is a ridiculous situation. But that is what it is, because it is again, Indians we are to the extent sharing any information without somebody giving us money, we are not at all keen on that. There has to be some specific reason for that. Government departments also work in a very lackadaisical fashion, but I think with so much of digitization, I must admit that they have become a lot more nowadays efficient in terms of.
If you link a GST and them, automatically get a lot of data.
Absolutely.
real estate industries also can be registered, no?
Real
estate also?
Yes.
Can be registered.
One of my clients is real estate in Hyderabad. He is registered with
Yes.
them.
So should we move into the next level or do you want to take a comfort break and come back?
Sir,
School and colleges can I wish MSME?
Yeah.
Possible.
Yes.
Can I get the 20 lakh subsidy there? No? This Prime Minister scheme.
Correct.
Is it possible?
Some of the schemes do not take educational institution. There's self-help group and educational institutions are barred in some of the schemes. They need to go to the specific schemes and check whether the eligibility is going there.
What if they start a crèche or something like that?
Sorry, come again?
Crèche kind of a thing and along with the school.
Nothing.
Crèche.
Crash.
Baby
I know.
care.
So if they start along with the school, primary school or like the Montessori school, will they be?
You need to check with the specific schemes. There is no open-ended schemes which say that everything is permitted to all sector. Each one has a provision. In this particular Udyam MSME registration, it says that exports not allowed, and some schemes, educational institutions and self-help group is not allowed.
Not one.
SHG is also not allowed.
Investment is only in the plant and machinery, no?
Yes. See, there is a definition, in fact. There is a line which says, what are the elements out of plant and machinery.
Earlier, only I think gross value was there, not WDV. That's what I remember the old definition. Same thing still.
I think it's for the as per
It is gross value.
It's as per the ITR.
WDV?
I think so. And I'll check it, but it's what I know.
It is as per the.
ITR.
WDG.
And only tangible assets.
And only tangible.
Excluding furniture, fixtures and all. There is a
That
classification.
is
No,
plant
is it
and
plant. Question was, is it only plant and machinery or
Plant and
machinery?
plant and machinery.
Furniture, fixtures,
It
those
is
things are not
specific written that investment in plant.
Very specific. I think we had also like
And that is
So
WDV.
fintech companies are there, no? So they invest in a subsidiary company. There will be a huge investment. They get money. But can they register in MSME also because turnover will not be there? Fintech companies.
Are you talking parent or subsidiary?
Both no. Parent
So you are saying parent will invest in subsidiary.
Subsidiary technically.
Okay. See, a financial investment is not an investment here. So in case a subsidiary invests that money into plant and machinery, then based on the what is the investment there, they will have to classify.
So the subsidiary will become plant and investment in plant and machinery, but can a parent company can come under?
No, you can't, because you are not invested as it is the parent and subsidiary same is in our mind. As far as the legality is concerned,
Legality, both are the different.
both are different. So
And they
parent company's own plant and machinery investment needs to be considered.
So it's a MSME, can be an MSME.
It can be.
Okay, so if fintech company registered in MSME, can they get benefit out of that earlier scheme which I know? Like priority sector lending is available for MSMEs. Can these companies go to, like for example, PhonePe doesn't have a revenue, so they can go to bank and get a loan at lesser price?
See, there are multiple criteria. So whether a PhonePe will be eligible, I may not be able to straight away standing here and actually give a response on that. Unless they are specifically excluded, every company should first of all imagine, figure out whether they actually fall under the MSME classification or not.
See, it will come under service sector, so it will get the benefit, no? Because largely it has been divided into three: manufacturing, agriculture, and service.
Okay.
So it will cover in service. So service industry also contribute 31%.
See, the point you can become an MSME, but depending on what you do, which scheme applies is then something that needs to be figured out.
So by registering,
So, just because I am an MSME, I go and stand in front of a bank, nobody is going to give a straight subsidy, right? You are a PhonePe, you can get registered. The registration is a mandate. It's like, I have an Aadhaar card. That doesn't mean that I will be able to go anywhere and say, I have an Aadhaar card, give me money. That does not work there. So, let us say PhonePe, I know you are actually asking for a very specific theoretical case to see, whether these, come under that or not. See, there are two classifications there, right? Is investment or turnover. So let us say if the PhonePe investment also doesn't come in, if they have a turnover, no?
turnover is just asking, like if assuming that they don't have
If you have a turnover, then you are based on the turnover, wherever you go up actually, then you cannot come down. See, if let us say your investment takes you to small, and your turnover is in micro, wherever you go to the higher category, that is where you will be classified.
So by virtue of registering myself as an MSME, I become a priority sector. Right? Can I take it?
It's not a priority sector. Priority sector is nothing to do with MSME.
Priority
It is
sector
separate,
is
completely separate.
differently classified.
That
Which is
classification, that agriculture will come generally priority. So
Yes.
So only for the agriculture priority sector they are stated.
See, priority sector lending is a specific activity. So that is not really linked to MSME per se.
that is priority sector lending is classified by RBI, where bank has given target to do the funding. That also includes housing loan, agriculture loan, MSME. There is certain percentage defined, like 7%, 14%, 20% kind of overall banking. In banking segment, 40% should land into the priority sector with the different things. So that is totally different TSL and this other end.
But if you are just started, you can register under Startup India, which is under DPIIT. Even if you have an idea, prototype, within 2 years, you can get funding under a startup seed funding scheme.
That incubation.
Yes. Either a grant or a debt.
So they give for that technology which is done by the company.
It's a technology developed, not technology purchased.
So they develop in-house.
In-house technology development, there is a process. So, it's not easy, in incubation when you are applying. So there is a process of, there is a committee to be formed at the incubator, and that committee formally reviews your application.
Okay.
And even if they, let us say, gave 10 lakhs or 50 lakhs, depending on this, it will all be linked to milestones. And each milestone is linked to what is that you are actually completing in your patent or in your technology development process. And only on that basis of completion you will be given those disbursements. So at least there are enough safeguards built in the way they have designed the process. It's not that someone says I will have some technology and straight away take money, and in the past we have had those cases. But as of now, the way the incubation process, incubator process there, it is reasonably well designed.
And to answer your question, somebody was asking if there is a loan available for CA firm. There is a working capital under term loan available in SBI. If you see, there is a specific loan feature which talks about loans for CAs.
But that's normal loan which the other banks also do. Not under the MSME. Even
No, you can consider with MSME, you can get some rate concession probably.
Oh.
But otherwise,
So if I register as an MSME, I get a rate concession. If I don't register, I may have to pay normal rates. That's a corporate.
yes. Now it's again discretionary at the bank, but you need to put
I think they can
now
ask
that
it.
you
See,
answer.
for professional, there is a category scheme in the bank.
Yes.
So that includes the CA also, that the classification, their calculation,
Service, yes.
the rate scheme, everything is there in all the banks.
No, sir, his question is that as a CA I am eligible. If I do MSME registration, am I eligible for at least 0.1% reduction?
Correct.
That is the question.
So I don't think so,
I
because
don't think-
MSME
because see,
registration would give you much impact.
So if I give
CAs may have a
if I
different
give
point
extra
of view,
collateral,
but
it's like
government doesn't think that CAs are a disadvantaged sector which requires some kind
no,
of.
sir, see, if I give extra collateral, I may get 0.1% reduction.
No.
But that is the financial
Hmm.
arrangement with banks, no?
Correct.
Because for all professionals there is a certain scheme in the banks where you will get a benefit with few documents, maybe lesser collateral,
Hmm.
lesser interest rate. But that is not linked with MSME. What MSME interest rate is passed on to the kind of subsidy and all will not get into the professional.
So typically MSME startups challenges of funding. What the government or what the banks require or any financial institution lender requires, information is 100, what is available is 10. That's the information asymmetry everywhere. And with the smaller firms, the challenge also is that it's not that they don't have information, but it's not in the designed way. They are not able to pull out the required data point, and even when they pull that information, there are so many discrepancies. That information asymmetry is a challenge. So many times MSMEs don't understand that they are not getting funding because of the lacuna in the documentation. They simply blame the bank or saying that they don't understand us.
No, most of the promoters don't have financial disciplines.
See,
Most of them, their CIBIL score they would have spoiled due to some silly reasons. I've seen
That that is one set of
See, the
obviously
basic-
there are
The basic thing, fundamental thing itself, KYC is gone. The customer's financial
Yeah,
history is spoiled.
See, basic thing is that 97% is micro, and they are still unorganized at large scale. So maintaining that, because it is the show which is run by the promoters only. They don't have any kind of accountant or maybe CA, because it's kind of 1 crore, 1.5 crore turnover. So they can manage it by themselves. So as far as documentation is concerned, which normally bank requires, they are finding it too difficult or manage it as per the bank requirement. When it comes to small and medium segment, they have the entire setup of accounts and still those who are very, but largely probably after GST, yes, to some extent they are aligned with the expectation of the bank, but still there is a gap. So,
Even if the scheme is there, the bank will ask how much security can provide.
see, it depends on in most of
Yes,
the
sir.
government.
So we had one meeting with the State Bank officials on the forum like this. They said start the funding everything. He said. Then we said without collateral will you give? He said no. Unless you come to some 3-4 years progress, then do some track record and all that, then only they'll fund. Otherwise only bill discounting. That's what they do, nothing else.
See, there is a difference between loan and a subsidy. Loan, whichever way you make it, what could be facilitated could be some bit of concession in documentation and all that. But fundamentally, if you are taking a loan, two things are required. One, you should have subsequent cash flows for you to pay, and that bank has to assess whether you will be able to generate that cash flow or not. Your history is important, but what you are giving as a project, this one is important. But people can give numbers in Excel, right? So then the question will be whether you have orders, who are the customers. Those questions are, whether you are an MSME, whether you are a large customer, banks need to do it because they are giving someone else's money. That's the reality we can never forget.
Actually, bank is actually lenders. They are into the business, like the MSME or other business. So although they have the schemes to support them, but largely the public money is going in the market. So definitely they have to take all precautions.
They have to take it
Because like there are CGTMSE, other GECL scheme which is government that indirectly linked to what other way you are funding to that customer. Like if there is a default in GECL scheme, so people may be not aware about that, but it is about how much you are getting percentage of your total lending out of selling those products. So that percentage will need to pass to the government also, equivalent to the number, what you have funded to that customer. So CGTMSE similarly, the settlement is very tedious task. So getting money back from the government is, so all precaution we need to take care of to save the public.
Sir, you continue this bill. 10 o'clock we have to close.
10:30.
10:30. Yes.
See, for the startup, what I have seen is getting these benefits of collateral free or that is very difficult. But if the concept is good, other things are good, grant is given immediately. Grant is given immediately. That is the
Up to 10, 20, 30 lakhs without collateral we can manage. Beyond that, no.
Yeah, Mudra and CGTMSE support that.
Yeah, so even in today as a startup, there are depending on the sector, there are different kind of grant schemes, and every week I see one new flyer which talks about some different kind of grants, because there are both private as well as public initiatives on the startups actually, and specific sectors. For example, aerospace you take, or healthcare, or ML, machine learning, AI. All these areas there is even healthcare tech. So much of focus is there. There are so many grants, but not that because you are a healthcare tech you become automatically eligible. There is also, it is a competition at the end of it. You need to be better than others who are actually presenting to get the grant. But most of the time, if the concept is good and there is a good amount of work done by the startup founder, I have seen, like he said, up to 10-20 lakhs, those grants are not difficult at all. In fact, as a startup advisor, I have a different philosophy. If startup is only looking at grants, and they give grant to grant, at some point of time I say, okay, you can't sit at home. Sometimes you have to go out and play. You have to you have to start exploring the market. You can't be only on the grants. You have to, build revenue, because grants are eligible only when you don't have revenue. So sometimes our startups also go on the other path actually, saying that if I go and start getting into revenue, then I will stop this the grant business. So let me be on the grants only for
Unemployment allowance is better than.
yeah, so you have all kinds of cases in the market. But the basic point is that if banks are giving loans, they need to look at cash flow, they need to look at collateral. Because if they are dealing with someone else's money, that reality we should never, can never forget.
And few banks having the separate branches, like I was talking to one of colleagues, that we have also in the Bank of Baroda having few branches in all across the states, where we are focused on that is startups. So that branch monitors, you have to open the current account, then they will monitor for 3-6 months, 1 year, your cash flow and everything. They can recommend to the lending branches to give you financial assistance.
See, today there is in fact the trends will cover some of this actually. So that old concept of you need to look at collateral and very specific revenue path in the future alone as the basis. Definitely even banks have come out of it. A lot of the new lending is actually breaking this logic and thinking beyond that. So today you have GST based. If you have a GST track, then based on the GST pattern, people know that this is a real number of revenue, and based on that you get funding. Cash flow based funding is has been there even in the past. It's not really a new concept, but somewhere there are huge losses. Banks will have to still look at okay, you have a cash flow, but how much of that cash is going to come back? Unless they make an escrow arrangement, they will not be able to secure. So, but then those arrangements are coming into picture. What has happened in the last 10-15 years is with India going digital, even at an MSME level, there is a lot more visibility in independent platform. It could be GST or it could be through their bank channels. Information can be figured out by the lenders without having to depend on the broken accounting systems of the MSMEs.
Payment gateways.
No, payment gateways. All these are information. So today the newer trend is primarily looking at these and saying how much of funding can happen. However, because that information also has a relevant, that its currency is very limited. So the period for which you get funding through them is also limited. Revenue-based funding, you are lucky if you are able to get 6 to 9 months. Most of the time nowadays I see only 3-4 months, because even they are not sure with the startups revenue is there for 3 months, whether it is there in the 4th month they don't know. So they are saying okay, I am going to give a loan, repay in 3 or 4 months. How many of the startups will be able to generate incremental revenue, which will generate incremental profits and cash, and with that cash the loan that you have taken will be paid. Many times startups don't get, or even MSMEs don't get revenue based funding, because actually they are looking out to funding their existing business. Existing business, whatever cash is getting generated is already getting used. So if the minute we apply a banker's lens to it, you can see that this is not going anywhere. It won't, you can do any amount of creative accounting in Excel, but the cash is not there in that business, you are not going to get the funding. That's the reality. The other point that, we sincerely advise people when they say that we need funding and all that, what to require funding is equity. Because your balance sheet is already so damaged. The only fresh lease of equity will give life. You need that oxygen, at the earliest, and whatever amount of new amount of loans you go for, none of this is really going to help. But many times they are not ready to understand, because they don't want to give up control. Even when they are ready to give up control, the way they have run businesses, there is so much less visibility. No new investor will want to put in money. If you ask me an honest question, in that, suppose the guy turns back and asks me, okay, you are saying equity. Are you ready to put in money? I will have to give an answer, straight answer, no. Because that is the way the business has been run there. So many of these MSMEs in this catch-22 situation. They will not get debt, nobody will put equity. So that's so many of these customers, many of the clients cannot be funded, but that is a topic for a different day. How these this small businesses, family businesses need to reorient themselves and figure out a way out of their current set of problems is not through finance. It is through, first of all, a mindset change at the level of founders. But it's not the topic today, so I don't want to go there. Lack of financial know-how, products and players, it's largely we have covered. Lack of technological advancement and ease of doing business. What is meant here is basically, they don't have apps. See, you don't need SAP Oracle for everything. So today there are even the smaller ERPs. You need not even take an ERP. You can run with even a Tally or a Zoho or any other software. But then you can have apps which are very specific to your large part of your complex business. Let's say complexity is in large number of customers. Then take something very specifically for customer management. Or you have a problem of vendors. There is a huge list of vendors, and so vendor management is a problem. There is a specific expense management or AP management, account payable management. Only that tool can be taken, and most of these tools will have connectors to your existing software. Is it a perfect solution? No. But is it workable in the given situation? Because you don't have technology, you don't have money, you don't have IT guys to run it. Maybe this is the most logical solution. It can work actually. But then, that willingness to change should come from the business. Otherwise, it won't work.
And also largely probably depending on like almost 45-46% of micro business is that is segmentation business, you can say, is largely in the rural and semi-urban areas. So where this kind of technology support or their understanding about the app and all is with largely very different kind of different from the urban areas. So probably that also play a critical role, because if large populations, say 45%, 46% are running through remote areas, so their knowledge of and skill towards the technology is a bit different from what they are kind of doing business in metros.
There is some truth there actually. So if you are into semi-urban or rural, to that extent your ability to attract talent goes down. And the level of in general knowledge in the entire business is so low that any amount of automation is going to become a challenge. Also, but in the last 2-3 years with the COVID, what has happened is that a lot of this are right now not necessarily rendered online, on-site. There is an off-site, this one is possible. And today, many of the softwares, they have already gone into this model of SaaS. So you can take a very small component of it and pay as you go. But obviously, per transaction cost may be slightly higher. But you don't need to take huge money upfront on the infrastructure, on servers, on the software. You don't need to do that. However, at least there has to be that willingness to embrace technology has to be there. If that is not there, it won't work. So one of our client, they were implementing. They are actually basically providing healthcare services in the really rural parts of the country. So in those places, they are putting up their centers. And in those sectors also, information has to be collected, cash has to be collected, cash has to be deposited. Largely, it was a mix of local, some amount of understanding, but at a local level, only very limited, only some amount of data entry only is left. Everything is kept centrally and supported from Bangalore or a similar IT-enabled city. So the system still worked. However, it will work with certain caveats. You have to. Your point is still right. In some Timbuktu, in the heart, the 200 kilometers from any city, you will not get much of it. This one talent. Existing high cost debt from unregulated markets. That's the reality of MSME. All of us know this. Inadequate collateral and the limited equity capital. So these are the typical funding challenges. The combination of this is the dead liver. One or two of these can be solved, but if all of them are together, then you can't solve it. So this is the MSME funding solution. Basically, it's the overall structure. It covers everything. So on the one hand, you have conventional and the top portion. The lower portion is in new age. And you have short term and long term as the other classes. So we have put into 4 boxes for understanding. Conventional, I don't think anybody in this room requires much of information and requirement and explanation around it. So I'll skip that. Unless you want to ask question, you can always ask, but there's no problem. New age is one what I want to cover a little bit. So trade credit, LC discounting, supply chain financing, factoring. Can also say this happened even in the past, it has been there. But what is happening today is that why we have called it new age is that with the lot of our documents becoming digital, lot of these which were only available at a, let us say, reasonably large size of businesses in the past. Now, because the transactions are digitized, even a smaller MSME can actually start availing this, these kind of schemes. Fund based, which is revenue funding, channel financing, GST overdraft, covered it to an extent. Government schemes, CGD, MSE, I covered it separately here. CGSS, Mudra, SFSS, these are the schemes. And the digital microfinance, these are really for micro, very small amounts of financing. Challenge in these kind of financing is that how do you run the collection mechanism for this? Because the transaction fixed cost for collection process is reasonably high. So, and those, today there are so many startups and the fintech, somebody talked about fintech, who are trying to solve this problem. And they would have solved it in some pockets. They have figured out, okay, this kind of an industry, this kind of volume, probably I will be able to track. So a lot of, I don't want to pass any comment on specific startups, but with in EdTech, when this mania on entire digital learning went to the high, sky high, there were a lot of fintechs who were doing this microfinance of 8th class, 9th class, 10th class education fees. Think of 20 years back, if I go and ask for my son's 8th class tuition fee, I need a loan. Bank guy would have straight away sent me out. But today, even those are funded. Those are those solutions are there. So that's the new age opportunities. Now, what the example I have given is more of B2C, which is directly to consumers. But even B2B solutions are there and different levels. But one point that I think the gentleman made earlier is highly relevant. Here, you should not fall into some of those fly-by-night, unscrupulous. I don't want to name any specific country, but operators from other places who are you may not understand fully, or your client may not fully understand, and then you get into very dark patterns of recovery from those kind of. That's something that our MSME friends have to be careful about. But those funding opportunities are there. I hope you got what I was explaining. I don't want to specifically.
You can make it clear, sir. Only
no. There are apps today where you can, based on whether as an individual or as a business, you can give your details and they will give funding. And at that point of time, it looks very attractive. Okay, but afterwards, their methods of recovery are quite. They are not the typical our Indian banking system recovery process.
Yeah,
so
within 3 to 5 minutes you'll get the funding. That's
yes.
through that.
So those things need to be, people need to be, our clients have to be careful about. But
not only that, one caution to all the members here. One of my friend in Hyderabad, CA, got into a problem. He lent his name as a director to one of these Chinese companies' apps as a director. So that because of the Chinese app, people committed suicide, and then police case was there, and he was unnecessarily dragged into it. So please don't lend your name as a director to any of these unscrupulous companies. You'll be in trouble.
Even if independent director.
Yeah, whatever director. Lawyers don't distinguish between independent and non-independent. First they issue a notice, then you have to go prove that you are not guilty. Why do you want to get into that mess?
Same thing happened in Bangalore also. One company secretary from 22 Chinese companies. Yeah.
So this is a word of caution.
6 months back.
correct. No, that I didn't want to on forum talk about a specific country or any state. So structured products, mezzanine debt and venture fund. What is a structured product? Anyone?
Tailor-made to suit the cash flows.
No, that is hybrid.
Tailor-made to suit the cash flows of the business. Initially, a banker lends, you would expect money from day one, at least the interest to be serviced, and over a period of time, principal to be serviced. So there are mechanisms where you balloon the principal payment as you suit your businesses requirements and things like that. That's a structured lending.
So, in a very simple way, earlier you had all these buckets separately, term loan separate, working capital separate. In a structured product, you are looking at the total business as a challenge actually, total business problems that are there. There could be cash loss happening, at the same time there could be earlier term loan repayment that are requirement for the business. So as the name Ali explained, basically in the structured product you create a very tailor-made solution for the specific part of the problem that the client is actually facing. So mezzanine debt is another option. Largely startups are doing this. MSMEs don't do it because for them equity. The minute somebody is saying that you may have to put your equity, they think that somebody is asking for donation of their body part. So they don't even think of that. But actually many MSMEs really require equity. Startups definitely understand their business plan always involves equity. In a mezzanine debt, what happens you take today a debt, and that debt either in part or in full gets converted into equity at a later point of time. So either fully or part of the capital repayment gets into equity, so you don't need to repay. But during the period where it remains as a debt, depending on the interest rate agreed, you may have either a substantial debt servicing, or you may have a very, very small debt servicing in case you are such a good startup and everybody wants to line up and put money into you. We had those situations 1.5 years back. Today the situation is reversed, but there were situations where people will say, I want to put money into your startup, and startup is aapka number lagega, your token number is 15, so please stand in the queue. So now that situation is not there in startup.
Startup funding dropped by 40% I think this year.
Yes.
Latest year.
So many losses,
2 days back.
falls.
Globally also that is the situation. In fact, we keep tracking it. It's the same challenge everywhere. Obviously, one is anyway. It's a topic is different. This is the first of all, US interest rates went up. That itself meant that a lot of the money will stay there rather than getting into out of US. And probably that may change after some point of time, because US may not. Definitely they also want to continue to increase the rates. But in general, the allure around the technology that is going to, only technology is going to deliver a huge amount of profits and revenues in future, was a underlying unsaid assumption. As long as you have a huge, very good technology, if you are able to demonstrate that, you can put year number 10, even India's GDP and people will accept. That was the situation. Now, one is your technology has to be good, otherwise no one wants to even to touch you. But the second equally important is how this is going to be executed, what are the critical things that need to actually happen, and the underlying numbers, is it some, like our 6.3 crores number of 2016, are those kind of numbers have been picked somewhere and put there, or are these really validated numbers or not, is a important thing. The minute you put many of these lens, even some of the good startups, they will not actually qualify. They don't get funding. So today, funding is one in general drop is absolutely right. But if you really split it by sector, in some sector there is nothing. For example, EdTech, what used to happen and what is happening today, it's not even 40%. It's much lower today. But there are other sectors where there is a lot of interest today. For example, if you take climate tech, there is a lot of investments today going into that. What we call as a clean tech. On that also there is a huge amount of investments happening, both in India.
Green energy, these are the sectors. Green
Yeah,
energy also.
yeah. So clean tech will include some of this power and all that. And obviously AI and ML, this is also large area. So mezzanine is that, and venture fund puts in money, but they will always want subsequently a right for investing at a much a better rate than existing investors or incoming investors. They will keep a token with them actually. So after 5 years I will come and invest at a face value of 10 rupees to you, while your share could be at that time 5,600 rupees. So that's a token they will keep. So, but venture fund is definitely a very, VCs are today startups lifelines. There are no VCs, entire startup sector will be actually sit down today. So VCs are a very important part of the ecosystem. So Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. So I think all of you know about this scheme. So Shishu Kishore Tarun. The name itself tells you that this is at a very infancy stage of a business that you get that Mudra benefit. And it's non-corporates, non-farm, small and micro enterprises are the eligible one. Facilities to basically working capital and a term loan up to 5 years. Annual guarantee fees is there 2%, and interest rate is slightly lower to, I would say, completely market rate, if your balance sheet doesn't support any kind of funding, slightly better, but nothing significant there. So this is if you remember when we studied banking, we used to call RBI lender of the last resort. So many of these schemes, you go because there is no other source for it. That's why you go and take it. So it is more often a source of finance, not necessarily source of cheap finance. And this is not a subsidy; it is a loan. So you need to repay. So you need to have a clarity on the funding, repayment process. So its ROI is linked to ELBR plus margin. So there could be some, each bankers know this better. Depending on the bank's focus areas and how they allocate their budgets, they may allocate some budget of subsidy under this. So to the extent they have a particular branch or a particular region have that budget, and when your approval goes, if that is available, you will get possibly some amount of reduction. Otherwise, once it's closed, then there's nothing left in that particular branch. If you take, then you get at a regular rate. Otherwise, you have to go to another bank and to figure out your mudra. CGD MSC scheme. Uma, would you want to explain?
Sure. I think this is more a working capital loan available to all the startups and MSMEs. Now this is there is an unsecured loan, so to say. The bank says the PIIT says that they will give some credit guarantee for this loan. However, you may have to still give, if it's a provider partnership, whatever it is, there is some kind of a collateral that you may have to give, not as a security, but at least even create a charge on this. So both are there. There is some regulatory for the turnover is mentioned. You may have to have a 1 year annual turnover. GST will be seen. Based on that, this scheme will apply, and all the banks are now doing big time behind CGD MSC. So a lot of startups and MSME, the moment you go approach a bank for a working capital or a term loan, they will tell you please take CGD MSC. So I would request all of you to just go through this and see where you fit in and approach your banker for this.
Usually is less, no?
Sorry?
It's mainly working capital, not capital.
It can be. It can be.
There also bank was giving 20% of the turnover as working capital loan.
That depends on there's an eligibility.
There is general, this one saying that on turnover 20% is the...
No,
That is only GST ulta. That is
No, it's not a general on the basis of because at the end of it, you have to have the elements of working capital very obvious in terms of your balance sheet.
Normally it is threshold where we give 20% of turnover, but it is not a one criteria.
No, it is a threshold.
There always be that is maximum permissible bank finance, that is MBPA, which we need to calculate. That is basis on your working capital gap. So
this is up to 5 crores you can avail, depending on what you do.
earlier it was 2 crore, now it has been extended to 5.
Contribution also. You won't get 100% of the eligibility. You will have to fund in as a promoter, some promoter contribution margin, say between 15 to 20%, 80% back on you, like any other CCOD, whatever.
Is there a minimum amount?
Sorry?
Minimum amount?
That will be 10 lakh,
Maximum
10, 15 lakh.
Yeah.
So 20% needs to come to the promoters.
Yeah.
What if the company needs, like the company?
Promoter contribution margin.
Promoter company. They have to bring it as an equity. If it's a company, so they have to bring it as an equity and show it.
Nothing of that sort. Let's say if your working capital shows that you need some 10 crore, for example, they will only give you 75% of that, 7.5 crore.
Don't
It
have to
means
pay.
that, that 2.5 crore is supposed to be funded by
Funded
you
by
to cater to the working capital.
Sanction
That's
will
what
be-
it means when you pay. Not that you want to give
Yeah,
cash.
so there's no requirement of bringing in the funds. They can- they can-
Correct. The eligibility, if your gap is 10 crore, 7.5 crore will be funded by the
Funded
bank,
by-
2.5 crore has to be funded by the government. That's
In,
what it means.
in bill discounting, it was slightly different. In bill discounting, suppose there is an 80% bill discounting, 20% you should be able to show that it has been, you have paid through your sources only. You cannot take one more loan and really pay that, because working capital, 80% means 20% has to come from your sources. Then even in the working capital, sir, your question, so people will calculate the working capital based on balance sheet, but then bank will do its due diligence. Suppose there are some account receivable or inventory which is very old, all that will be taken out, and only what is really alive and kicking out of the working capital, only that is taken, and based on that the percentage is agreed, based on our ratings and all that, and post that the disbursement happens. So,
And also the contribution, promoters' contribution also, we normally deduct that doubtful debts, which is normally nothing but your loss.
correct, it is loss only, it will be counted as loss. So they'll look at the equity, this one after reducing this, this is the
Correct.
net capital
So
investment.
what 20-25% which ma'am is saying is definitely out after deducting that only
Correct.
if the balance sheet shows that.
Yes.
So debtor analysis, data analysis is also important.
Because any MSME balance sheets, we see that bad debt from year one is being carried out. Because I mean, their hope is not incorrect, saying that okay, somewhere day I will be able to collect. But we also then need to do a bad debt provision that they don't do.
Here if you see that allowed eligibility criteria, allowed sectors are only manufacturing, services and retail. Education and SHG is out of it.
Is
Because
there
CGTM.
profitability requirement for this?
That
Startup
the
would have-
usual, see, it's like a working capital or a term loan. CGT MSC is because bankers are backed by a security from the government.
So they don't mind even though.
Exactly, so your, there will be a slight relaxation in terms of the security,
See,
underlying security that.
Yeah,
you may have.
CGTMS is
Private
actually
banks also-
nothing but without collateral you can get the funding, but the criteria of calculating the loan will be same.
Say,
So it will not much impact the loss hai, so you will not get the loan. If you not get the loan, you will not get covered by CGTMS. It's like that.
Private banks also.
All
Banks,
banks.
all banks.
So it's not that.
Can be used for capex also, term loan, CGTMS term loan can be taken for capex.
Yeah, capex also. That is also.
So this is the SEBI Make in India loan. This is it is a equity in nature, or it's a soft loan. Basically, soft loan means the terms of repayment are somewhat liberal. Funding quantum is 10 lakhs to 25 lakhs, and basically for equipment finance. Up to 10 years you can actually take this loan, and minimum promoter contribution is 15%, but your debt equity ratio has to be 3:1. If you have your balance sheet looks like a telephone directory of all the banks in the city, then probably you may not be eligible. First charge over all assets and personal guarantee of promoter. Is that correct? So credit guarantee scheme for startups. This is issued by Geo and DPIIT.
Very recent one if I'm not.
yeah, this is the reason,
Yes,
but
it is.
same like CGT MSC, except for the turnover criteria. There it will say stable revenue of 1 year, it will say stable revenue of 3 years. That's the only classification difference. I don't think many banks have issued this credit guarantee as of now. It is just coming to work, so they are also trying to promote this. So it's not tested yet, but this is available. The eligible quantum is 10 crores. If the CGT MSC gives 5 crores, this gives it 10.
One thing I've recently learned, SBI is a little ahead of the other banks. Recently I met a startup branch of SBI. They say, in fact, that we were discussing about this grants, right? So one of the criteria for CGSS is the company should have received a grant from one of the multilateral agencies or government, Indian government organization or state government organization or any multilateral body. Second thing is they should have got funding from at least 2 private equity or venture capital funds. If these 2 conditions are satisfied, CGSS scheme up to 10 crores they would do it without much of a insistence on collateral. Of course, they look for some collateral, not that 100%.
Nothing else a personal guarantee.
Of course, personal guarantee
So
is
their
by
push is
default expected.
morely towards the equity investment of the.
I'm sure once SBI has come up, since
see
SBI has
this
come, other
CSS
banks also will come with a similar scheme. Bank of Baroda, I'm sure will come up.
Yeah, but this criteria condition is not laid out as per the government rules, not to be.
Maybe it's SBI's own.
This is the government guidelines. The bank has different policies about see the seriousness of equity from the promoter.
Yeah.
So probably that always be available. You need to see the difference.
See, the startups, that is the issue actually. See, many of the startups are the first-time entrepreneurs. They have a limitation in terms of how much capital they can bring in. And if you ask them, the fact that they are not earning salary anywhere else and they are putting in, there is a sweat equity. But banks don't recognize
Some of
20.
them won't have filed the IT returns for 3 years. Nothing.
So they don't have any data. They don't. That's a standard issue actually. If you remain outside the system and suddenly you want to take all benefits out of the system, it doesn't work. So see, today a relative similar kind of an example. Accreditation. Suppose the education institution wants. Okay. So earlier accreditation can happen just like that. No, okay. The accrediting committee will come and review and look at library, look at this, look at the playground. Okay, so you would take them out for a nice lunch and dinner and have a good talk with them, and then you take 4 photos and you are done. Today, any accreditation, okay, is a 5-year process. Every assertion that you make, okay, we have this kind of program, we have science lab, or we have this kind of say, for example, debating society is there. Or let's say we as a college is doing some social work, please show photos, please show evidence. And those evidence, that photos are not of yesterday, it has to be dated on that period. All that needs to be. So many of these engineering colleges you would have heard, a lot of them are getting de-recognized. Some of them are getting de-recognized because of the issues in the number of students coming in. But many of them are getting this one because they are not able to sustain their earlier accreditation. Accreditation process also has become. So why I gave the example is that the startup entrepreneur suddenly wakes up and says, I need this, I need that. And as he rightly pointed out, multiple years he has not filed return. You may be having that, you may believe that you actually had all these benefits and you have the eligibility, but you need to prove it with the documentation and this. So you need to build all that from day one, and that when they don't do, later on the struggle comes in. So that's the education that many CEs need to do. Obviously, none of the CEs will go and tell people don't pay taxes. None of us will say that don't file return. But when people try to do wrong things, we need to tell them that see, this is okay if you permanently, lifelong you want to remain under the radar. You want to hide under the table lifelong, then it is okay. But if you believe you want to build a large business and you want to create something worthwhile in this one. It is in the current scenario where everything is more or less digital. Better to at least build these records, on a reasonable period of time, rather than saying that I will always remain, hiding under the table. When many of the MSME registration don't happen because of that, because they're scared. If I'm registered in MSME, maybe tomorrow GST guy will come and ask me questions. I have heard this, this kind of responses coming from our clients. It's our job to actually educate them and tell them that this is the way the future is going to be, and if you don't take this some bitter pills right now, you are going to face problems later. So revenue based financing, this is started largely in US actually initially. So when I see the US market, there are many this kind of revenue based financing setups which have mushroomed there. Primarily also, if you look at outside of the revenue visibility etc. is very high. So it's very easy for them to understand and lend. So what is revenue based financing? So it is the different variation in the GST overdraft. But here the principle is that you are doing well, your existing business is making profits, probably it is not generating so much cash that you can actually fund your future, and you are looking at a huge upside in the market because of some situation. So you have an upside, and if you are funded today, you will be able to generate that revenue. That revenue will last over the period of this loan, and it will generate incremental profits in cash, and with that cash you are able to repay. So with this underlying logic, no collateral. Your collateral is nothing but your revenue. So how do they then the bankers secure? Because otherwise bankers also will be scared of giving that. What bankers do in this case is an escrow. So if they are going to give this revenue based financing today, they will say before anybody else, it's like Nakshatrika and Satya Harishchandra. So these guys will say, okay, first my money comes into through escrow to my, so now the minute your customers pay, then only you can actually take out money for your regular expenses. But many startups I have seen actually benefiting from this. But it works only in one scenario, where you actually have incremental business getting managed through this, and your existing business you are funding, you have adequate funding, and you are able to understand this cash flow separately. There where people are saying, my turnover is 15 crores, I am going to be 15 crores for another 2 years, but right now I need some money because my working capital is stuck. Go for revenue based financing. What will happen is from general ward you will go straight to ICU at the end of 3 months, because the cash that was getting generated, it is all getting pulled out, and the money that would have come in, you would have gone and straight away paid off some vendors. Probably you could have negotiated with them and taken a little bit more time. So this right advice in terms of these things need to be given by us, rather than saying that okay, somebody is ready to give revenue financing, please go and take revenue financing. You should not do that.
Not many banks have promoted this. I am not aware any new banker has spoken.
It's mostly revenue based financing is happening from private parties.
Private banks.
Private, no. Like if you take all these new age financial players, no. You take Cred, Innoven, you have Clubworks,
Get Advantage, Trade Space.
Get Advantage. There are many of these players. These guys actually offer this.
This is fintech lending platforms. But they are the ones who have built the technology to take the money straight away with they have ties with Razorpay or any other payment gateway, so they are able to get the money. It's all digital.
They have an embedded SaaS offering where they trace what transactions are also there and it will go that way.
Like the cost.
No, I partially agree. Many of them depend on GST returns.
Okay.
Many of them depend only on GST returns, because our startups are also not to that extent. But the key is that your revenue needs to come through one designated account. That they will track also. Because otherwise, if anything gets shifted, there is a problem. That's why a lot of them are. This funding happens with the e-commerce arrangement is there, because in an e-commerce arrangement, even if you want, you can't touch any of this. Through which account the money is getting transferred from the e-commerce platform. All these are cast in stone. They don't change any of this. So bank or the lending institution also is quite comfortable. These guys can't do anything on this. So they just need to put an escrow arrangement on the bank account. They are quite safe. In fact, it's so attractive. Many of these guys have a very large revenue-based funding today as their vertical.
So one of the solar projects are such as where many companies, I have met 1 or 2 companies here as well, where they are kind of setting up the solar project to all big companies, small companies, warehouses, kind of that. Where we fund to those companies, not only all private sector and nationalized bank also are funding to those companies, to those solar projects, where there is a escrow from that principal company where they are setting up. So that to largely it is kind of revenue based, where there is no collateral required, because that primary collateral is a collateral only, and that the rental, that what they are doing, that ownership of that particular piece is with the companies only, and they are giving it to the rent. They are charging rent for 20 years from the principal company. So
there is a huge amount of warehouse increase that has happened in the last 2 years.
All big companies.
The only differentiation here, what I would like to add is you need not have a working capital gap for prepaid B2C companies, where the future the revenue is going to increase and the receivable is going to increase, but you will get prepaid. So there is no working capital gap, so you cannot have access to any of the bank's working capital. For them, this revenue-based financing, where they can invest in marketing, get onboarded on various e-commerce portals to increase their revenue and get an incremental sale. This will definitely come in handy.
So you stated for short period of time, not revolving credit. Is there any specification that?
Yes, because you can project your prepaid cash flows for some cycle, because it's all prepaid ones, right?
Okay.
You are able to generate or forecast 3 months, immediate 3 months. So they will give it at that 3 months, then it expires then. It doesn't get automatically revolved. Next 3 months again you will have to go through that.
So the sanction is more like a revolving, right? You can use that amount for the period.
No, it expires. It's just a 3 months, 4 months, then depending on your relationship with the lending partner, the period can increase. But it won't be revolving.
That is why I explained the underlying logic of revenue. No business is going to be on a permanently growing. No business I have ever seen which has any point of time there is a 50% growth they are looking at. This is for that kind of situation. This is like a college student from India going to US. he has a one-time opportunity of 2 years of learning, and after he's going to have a huge amount of income coming in, so you get funded. Something revenue based is something of that nature. It's not a working capital fund.
Growth, not a steady.
So assuming some days,
This is more of a capex. I would equate it to a capex.
Yeah.
So building an asset that will give you
Yes. Correct.
revenue over a period of time.
See, that's the point. See, many of these startups, they don't have capex, but their marketing spend is as big as a capex. so they get funded for that actually. So, but you should not be funding cash sources. That's not the idea. You are spending marketing spend, you are going to get revenue out of it, and that the cash coming out of it, you are able to repay. Then you have taken the business from this level to the next level. At that time, possibly you can go back and say, I have further opportunity. Possibly you have now, you are entering another market, large market, and you have a new opportunity. Possibly you will get one more round of revenue-based funding. But I would then at the stage say, then if your business is growing at this kind of pace, then have you really funded it properly in terms of your regular equity and debt? Why go into this every time on a ICU mode? Not required.
so it can be
Because it's a very costly one. So by the way, these interest rates are not cheap here.
So can it be turned if led by other party also, like for example, small companies lending to this for this revenue-based funding like credit and all those people, can credit get a loan from based on this lending? Can they get a loan from other MSME sectors like banks?
See, your loan book, if you are a fintech player, is one part. What is the component of loan book is one part of it. Based on the loan book, existing loan book as well as how it is going to increase, you will get funding either from banks in terms of loan or in terms of private investors. You could have revenue-based funding as one. See, at the end of it, it is just one product. Like any other multiple products of fintech, it is one more product. So sales invoice discounting, it's the old version of revenue-based, I would say. So this is a quick fund dispersal, digital processing nowadays, and collateral fee and short-term cash cycle.
The only difference is you have a receivable, underlying receivable here. It's a sales on credit, that is sales on cash.
Yeah.
So we should know the final terms when to use revenue-based financing and when to use invoice discount. B2B this will help.
So supply chain financing, this is basically purchase invoices or orders confirmed by anchors. Anchors are large corporates. These are their ratings are definitely starting at a level. So because they are so good, if you are based on whom they are purchasing, you can actually get funding out of that. So that's supply chain financing.
So the likes of Hindustan Lever or
Yeah, Maruti, Tata,
Yeah.
all dealer financing, that is also.
So this is to the extent it is possible for you to take this it comes at a reasonably low cost. But I saw one disadvantage when we were running it in one of my companies. See here what happens is can you really think of it as a permanent funding? It is not. See suppose because this is not based on your balance sheet, it is based on somebody else's balance sheet. Suppose tomorrow that company decides that our priorities are different. We don't want X company, we are going to Y. Then this entire arrangement, funding, everything goes out of the window. So from a long-term structuring of the balance sheet, supply chain financing of this nature, I have some questions. But otherwise it's a very good and really cost-effective way of funding.
Even in this is unsecured purely, and also rate of interest is much lower than your nominal working capital, because the entire funding is based on what sir said that anchors balance sheet. And there is an arrangement of purchase like 30 days credit, 45 days, 60 days. For bank also it is very convenient and secure that we actually kind of monitor your entire business as and when funding is done.
Correct.
So the small players can get a bigger credit period through this arrangement. Otherwise, if you had approached them directly, they may not agree for such credit because they do not know your repayment capacity. This arrangement works through a bank, and hence they are able to give the credit period, and you are able to source the material efficiently from a big player.
ideally a banker who is already a banker to the buyer.
Yes, absolutely.
No, but if this is already covered by our normal working capital cycle, then this will
You
not.
cannot go additionally borrow
can't
because
go.
it's already charged to the
Our,
bank.
See, only thing is that it is over and above, in the sense, because it's not based on your balance sheet, no?
So it is even more than what your NPBF is.
Correct.
Basically, it is based on your purchase from your anchors. So that is, and because largely it is loan. The loan is given to the dealer or suppliers because of the anchor's balance sheet and their credences. So anything happens wrong with that particular, that borrowers, that will largely secure by the anchors. Because 30, 45 days once bill will be overdue, they'll stop supply to the, that particular dealer. So,
The GST based overdraft, we already referred to this 3-4 times during the discussion today. It is somewhat of a last 6 months development, I would say. Earlier, I was not aware that
yeah, it is about 2 years.
2 years now. So it is, I have started referring to our clients in the last 1 year. So basically, S Bank, Axis Bank, ICICI Bank are offering this facility. The advantage here is, even if your books are not well maintained, or that is based on your GST records, you are able to avail this overdraft. Limit is up to 2 crores.
Yeah, this is collateral based, not.
Yeah, it is collateral based, yes.
So one point is
Yeah, collateral is definitely required.
because largely it is loan that is, deal is given because of the collateral. Because we are not taking any financial, we are not doing any assessment of the
Okay.
financial.
Collateral is needed, at the same time, the cash flow assessment is based on
that
GST.
is GST API that we enable from the auditors, and then we go ahead with this 6-year balance sheet, and GST we do a calculation of 90% if it is coming into the bank, we'll go ahead. And so yes, there is a CIBIL score is good.
Okay, CIBIL score is set. So Startup India Seed Fund Scheme, this is operational from 2015 onwards. Up to 20 lakhs funded by incubators. Target sector is the early stage startups for their market entry, proof of concept, prototype development and product trials. Significant employment generation and eco-friendly space. These are the typical reasons for which the funding will happen. This is eligibility is a DPIIT recognized startup, incorporated less than 2 years.
Startup with only 2 years, up to 2 years only can opt for this. More than 2 years, if the startup exists, they will not be eligible for this.
Where we have to approach for this?
DPIIT.
DPIIT should have a Startup India registration.
So this is a Go Green initiatives. There will be many more coming our way. This is right now with SIDBI. So highly concession loans up to 2 crore per project is given by MSME at 3 to 5% interest rate. For hunting innovative technology projects at the pre-commercialization stage. Additionally, basically where this is coming from, there is a lot of calculations around the carbon footprint of the companies. So you are taking specific steps to reduce the carbon footprint, and you are bringing in new technology, and or you are, for example, you are moving out of the fossil fuel and you are moving into more clean. In those specific, these parameters are already defined. Then you will come under the Go Green initiative. CDB lending is going to happen. CDB also, it is also, I would still say, it's still nascent stage. They have started lending, but you need to go and figure out how it is going to apply to respective.
Any cab aggregator who wants to run only EVs,
No.
I think will ideally 3 crores is good for them to buy some 20 vehicles.
I saw in Bombay, Uber Green has become a vertical by itself. They have a separate huge number of cars coming through I am sure it is funded through the Green initiative. Okay, so I am almost at the last one. This is the different IT resources that you can actually explore at. Don't worry, you will get the presentations. You can actually explore it separately once you receive it. So why we took this as the last one is that the one takeaway I wanted to carry from this room is that MSME benefits are not restricted to only funding. MSME benefits are much larger than only banks and others funding it. and if you are able to explore for your specific clients different IT, I am sure for every one of your clients there will be some or the other benefit out of this. But it requires a bit of exploration, it requires a bit of patience, and in terms, one is understanding. Second is none of these departments are, I would say, it's not like a private place where it's not easy. You have to figure out how this have to be availed. But someone will have to put that effort and energy behind that. But definitely there are success stories of people who have actually availed these schemes. So largely I am done right now. So we can actually have any questions. We can cover. So our email ID and number is on the.
That's a fantastic data and discussion which gave us insights on how much scope we chartered accountants have, especially with regards to MSME sector. That was an interactive session with active interaction by many of the participants. A round of applause for the time and efforts of the speaker, experience and expert views on the and deliberation on the subject, to CA Venkatesh Bhat sir. With an announcement that we, the Bangalore branch of ICI, conducting the state level conference on 11th and 12th of August at Anantya Palace Grounds. We request all of you to kindly register for the conference. On behalf of members present here and all the managing committee members of Bangalore branch of ICI, we would like to hand over a memento to the speaker as a token of gratitude and respect. Can I request CA Panduranga Kamath sir to come over and then hand over the memento to the speaker. Thank you, sir. The Managing Committee of Bangalore branch would like to thank the support of all the participants for today's session. We thank speakers, sir, once again for your time and effort. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that deliberation. With that, I, CA Manjunath Maldur, Secretary of Bangalore branch, sign off for the day. Thank you.